Okay, well, welcome everyone to one of our first Agri-Comfort's webinars here. My name is Noel Kelly. This is Nele Shearmeyer. We're just going to have a little bit of a slideshow here about the pairing of calves and the buddy system, as it's called. There's been a lot of discussion about this, different topics, pros and cons. So Nele's going to go through it. She's got a nice presentation here, and it's just to get a feel for it. I'm going to try and keep it pretty short, and you can log questions as we go, and we can take them at the end. All right. So as long as you can hear us all okay, it'd be nice to get a little thumbs up there if possible. If not, we just crack on. So I think you can just do share screen here. Perfect. All right, and I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Okay. Hi guys. Yeah, as Noel already said, I'm going to do a little webinar today about the buddy system and generally the benefits of housing calves in pairs. Like Noel said, my name is Nele. I also work for the Agri-Comfort brand. I'm a vet from Germany, and generally you're a person to speak to in Agri-Comfort if you have any technical or health veterinary related questions. Just shoot me a message. Yeah, so today we want to talk about the buddy system. I'm just going to start off like real simple with what do we generally need for a calf in housing. Research shows like 5 basic requirements a calf needs. It's a properly ventilated space. It needs to have good access to feed and water. It needs a dry and absorbing insulated bedding, and the housing has to have easy access for handling and treatment for the personal, and it has to be easy to clean and sanitize. And all of that is achieved in different ways, either in like indoor pens like shown here in the picture, or in hutches outside, which is very popular. But as you can see, this research is already like 20 years old. And what I feel is there's missing something. This is more to get a calf very content, but we now know more about good calf welfare and comfort, and I feel like there's more to it than just those 5 reasons. So what a highly discussed topic in agriculture is, should I have my calves grouped or individually? So those 2 pictures here show it really nice. So a farmer would probably like the calf on the right better, while like a consumer would prefer to see the calves as shown in the picture on the left, which is a farm in Germany. I've been to last week, where they are in a group. A farmer has bigger issue with that and more trouble seeing that, while the consumer, the animal rights person, would like to see him like that. I'm just going to go a little bit into the pros and cons of that. Let's start out. What would be the natural thing to be? So if a calf is born in a mother herd, just like out in the fields, left like mother and calf left to do whatever they want to do just by their instincts, this is what happened. The calf would be born. The mother would go like outside of the herd to have the calf born. She would separate from the group. She would give birth to her calf and let it be outside the herd for a couple of days. It would be isolated individually. This is the natural instinct for a cow to do this, just as the deer also would do. It is to protect this calf from the germ pressure and pathogen pressure from the herd, and just like let this calf like kind of like get settled into its new life, and then she would bring it to the group with a couple days, maybe a week or 2 of age, depending. So it is very natural for a calf to be alone in the beginning of its life. It would not be with its mother all the time. The mother would let it lay there and would go back to the herd and graze, and she would just come for a couple times a day to let it suckle and feed. So it is very natural for a calf to be alone, and only to start interacting with other cows and calves after a couple days or weeks of age. And that actually, then they actually start to interact and to socialize. So a lot of studies were conducted on that, and they found that there's a big difference in the behavior of the calf if it is raised by itself for the whole weaning process, or if it's raised in a pair or in a group house situation. And what they found is that the heifer calf that was raised in a paired housing situation is less aggressive, and even then less aggressive if they are raised in a group housing situation. And you have to think about it. It's not just a calf. This calf is going to be your dairy cow, and they have to act in a herd, in a social situation. So it is good for them to learn that early on in their life. And the second aspect is they also counted the social interaction those calves are showing. And calves that were raised in paired housing had 70% more social interactions compared to calves raised in individual houses. So there's an undeniable socialization aspect of having calves not individually. From an epidemiological standpoint, and this is what every farmer will tell you if you ask them, why are you not raising your calves in groups, or why do you have them in those single hutches? From an epidemiological standpoint, it is better for the calf to be alone. So while it is less stress for them to be in a group, and this is what you can see here in this column, and this is in tune with what I just showed you in the slide before. So they are more used to the group situation and just to interact with other cows, and it's less stressful for them to meet new calves and cows. It is more risky for them because they have a not fully built up immune system right now, so they are more susceptible to diseases. And if you pair more calves together, there's just going to be a higher pathogen pressure on them, and they're going to get sicker. Interesting enough, a study conducted in 2014 found that this is not a linear graph. So if you have two calves together in a paired house situation, the number is only very slightly increased compared to individual housing, while in a group of 6 calves, you already have it more than doubled. So it is okay. Maybe paired housing is just a compromise on this, because you have the socialization factor, but you also have a good epidemiological standpoint. Another interesting factor, people are always talking about antibiotic buildup and usage and all of that. If you have a calf in an individual house, and this is definitely a pro for the individual housing, they found that the odds of building up of antibiotic resistance in those calves was decreased by 15% if they were individualized. And that makes sense because those germs can just not spread across the farm. Those germs are also contained in that little hutch of one calf. And there are more aspects to this than just the epidemiological and socialization standpoint. There's been a lot of research being done on this in the past couple of years, and one found that the feed intake is highly increased in calves that are raised in pairs or groups. They just learn from each other to eat. They see like the other calf eating the grain, and they're like, maybe I like that too. And that's just not happening in the individual housing. And actually, the concentrate or grain intake should be your main measurement of when to wean your calf. It should not be like 6 weeks, that's it. You should always aim for 1 to 1.5 kilograms of concentrate eaten a day. And in a group house situation, you just reach that threshold quicker than you reach in an individual house. It not just saves you costs, it also helps you promote a better growth and help the calf reach the genetic potential better. Just to back that up with a couple numbers from a study just conducted last year, they compared the starter concentrate eaten by the calves raised individually or in paired houses, and it was almost double in the paired house situation. So a younger calf comes quicker to this 1 kilo threshold where it can be weaned. So it's just better for the development and the rumen development and all of that. And the graph on the right, which says novel food intake. So this is a number that shows how quick a calf can adjust to new food introduced to them. So just for example, if you add TMR or silage to their diet and they've never seen it before, they just start eating that quicker if they have a partner. They're less fearful and they are more brave to try this. It's more than double. It's 260% of what they found. The food intake would be 260% of what it would be in the individual hutch. So in that study, they actually concluded that a social housing situation as paired housing or group housing promotes better solid feed intake and decreases the fearfulness of the dairy calves, which is definitely what we want. So let's address one more topic, and this is what every farmer is going to bring up if you tell them that you have to pair your calves or put them in groups or whatever. They're going to say, we can't do this because they're going to do cross-suckling. And they're right, because cross-suckling is a phenomenon. It's a real thing. It's a phenomenon already described in literature in 1942. It is very, very dramatic. It is like an addiction. The calves will keep doing it even after they're weaned, if they once got into the habit of it, and you just have to do something to prevent them of getting into the habit of that. And yes, one solution is having them in individual hutches because they're physically not able to do it. But another solution could be to let them drink in another system. So the milk bar system that imitates drinking from a natural udder, like from a cow udder, it is a slow feeding system. The calf has to use a positive and negative pressure to get the milk, and it takes them a long time. And just the way they drink from this teat promotes a neurological feedback that satisfies their need to suckle. And calves that drink from a milk bar, they just like lay down and sleep because it tires him out. It's very, they have to use a lot of energy. They train their muscles in it actually also too. It helps them with getting to eat faster, quicker too. But they will not cross-suckle, and actually research trials already show this. And on the picture here on the right, you can see what a teat would look like if it was sucked on by another calf, and what a healthy teat look like. And this has a dramatic effect on the dairy cow you're raising here, because you will just promote heifer mastitis if you let the calves cross-suckle as crazy. So you have to do something against it. It could be individual hutches, or it could be feeding from a milk bar teat. So let's compare our options here. If we say we put a calf in an individual house, it definitely has the benefit from an epidemiological standpoint. We have low pathogen pressure and less treatments for respiratory diseases because we have less infections than in group housing. We will have no cross-suckling because they can't, but we will have a not so great feed intake and a lower feed intake because they just don't learn to eat as quickly as they could. And we do not have a good socialization because they're just isolated. In a group, we have a bad epidemiologic situation. We have the better socialization. We will have a good feed intake. Depends a little bit because I put like the wanky smiley here because actually a big group is also very stressful because the calves create a packing order. So there are calves that are low in the packing order who actually are not allowed to go to the feeding trough. And we will have cross-suckling if we use a bucket or fast feeding teat.
Before you move on there, Nele, this is a great, simple graphic you've done. And this is, on the left, that's the reason why people choose single housing, because it works so well.
Absolutely.
And the people on the outside are not knowing our business. They can't understand that. And they say, yeah, put them all in groups. So you've got pathogen pressure, so you're going to get more infections in a group compared to where if they're singly. So one green face here. So the interesting part now is the piece to get a nice middle ground. So
exactly, because this is all what the public sees and wants. So the only thing they think about is like, those are baby cows and they cannot be alone. They're going to be sad when they're alone. They do not want to hear about any of this.
They don't understand it.
They don't understand it, and they actually don't want to hear it. So we have to make sure that we get this happy face, but also prevent those from being upset. And actually, housing cows in pairs, I mentioned it a couple of times during this talk already, can be a very good solution because it is a small immunological group. So we're still in a very confined area. We have we basically have no packing order because two calves cannot create a packing order. It's very important that they're very, very close in age. They should be under 3 days. I would also go as far as say they should be born no more than 48 hours apart. The only really downside we have here is that if we feed them from a bucket or a fast feeding teat, we will get cross-suckling, and we can still prevent that if we use the milk bar system. So from our product range, it's really easy to do this actually. We have a hutch, the EXL hutch, that has an internal space of 3.5 square meters that suits 2 calves to age for up to 6 weeks. Or you can put them in this flex pen where they can be separated for the first 5 days of their life, and then you can just pull out this middle wall and create a small group of 2, and then you should feed them with a milk bar vitality system to prevent cross-suckling and help them also get the best digestibility out of the milk, because the milk bar has even a lot more positive effects than just preventing cross-suckling. Yeah, so.
And of course, the space is one thing, Nele, but you need to have, especially, you know, we're a global business, we're dealing with a lot of hotter climates, you need to have the correct ventilation and airflow.
All the first points I showed you on the first slide, they're still valid. But all our products basically promote those 5 points. Then it's just a question of which system you're.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if we just go back to your last slide, and I think that's really good. It's all covered there. The paired housing, once you have enough space, the pathogen pressure is not as high. Incidence of respiratory diseases, again, if we have the ventilation. Feed intake is actually increased because there's almost like a little competition between them. Socialization is of course increased. And the reason we like to call it the buddy system is wherever these heifer calves go on from here, they'll always have their buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
So that pecking order you talked about earlier, when they go into that group of 20 or 30 calves.
Exactly, you just keep that teams of 2 together, and then you just build up a group of 20, then you do like 10 teams together, and they still have their buddy, and that will help them tremendously create a smoother transition from that.
And the comments we've heard on farms that run the buddy system is when you put the group of calves together and take them away from the house they're in, the paired housing, there's way less lowing and noising. The calves are more settled than if they come from singly into a group. It's just, the stress is just not as much.
No, not at all. And they're already used to dealing another calf, so they're just really fine in the new group situation. While transforming a calf from an individual hutch to a group, even to a small one, is always a big stressor on them, and that's always gonna take like a nag on their immune system, and it's just gonna make them more prone to any diseases. Yeah.
And we have had cases already where, you know, there's some supermarkets who are insisting that you go to 2 calf system, and farmers are just putting, where they had 1 calf in a space, now they're putting in 2. They're not changing their feeding system. Now all of a sudden uses of antibiotics has increased, you know, 15-20%. Yeah. So you can't have the same, you're fixing one problem, but you're creating others. Yeah, so you have to have the right solutions.
Yes.
So we're going to stop the share here now. And we're back to here. And I think we can see, again, this is new to us, everybody. We can see we have some Q&A, right? Okay. What would a modified hutch be?
Okay.
A modified hutch, well, I think maybe that question is in regards to, could you use an existing hutch and modify it? We've had people where they put maybe 2 single hutches side by side, put 1 larger cage around it.
Yeah, exactly.
What can happen there?
Yeah, so I can see that from an investment kind of standpoint. It is really not ideal. I think the calves will most of the time will pile up into one of the small hutches because they just want to be with each other. They're herd animals. They're not going to separate into the 2 hutches and just going to hang out in the front lawn together. So they're just going to be in one hutch.
They're always going to pile up on top of each other, and dirty pen and no air.
Yeah, exactly. The air condition, like the air quality, would be my main concern there, actually, because it's just a very small confined area for 2 calves.
And what's interesting, I mean, well, you know, back to the commercial side of things, you know, Agri-Plastics have this large range. We have the EXL, the Flex Pen. You could even say you could use the group hutch with some fence modification could be used. And interestingly enough, the EXL is one of the first ever hutches from Agri-Plastics. Joe and Darren and Rob Van Buren invented that way back when. So one of our oldest products is the perfect solution for a modern day problem.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And it also fits a lot of like organic label qualities. Like we have a farm in Denmark using them with pairs who's working under an organic label.
And on organic, there's enough space again for 2 calves to cover under the organic. And this has been proven for years now.
Yes, exactly. They're very good success with it.
So